All right.
Okay. And
that should be it.
Record. All right. So we're
You can still hear me fine?
perfectly. You
Cool.
hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, power goes out.
The entire time.
That's when the power goes out. After all this testing, that's when the power goes out. Hi, everybody. It's Adam from LUCIDPIXUL and Antonio from Cutting Sketch Designs. And we are here today with a very, very special treat. We're going to have a conversation that I know a lot of you artists out there are really, really interested in. And that's the whole subject of speed painting. What is it good for? Is it a help? Is it a hindrance? Is it something that can help you grow artistically? Or is it something that's going to get in the way and distract you from growth? Well, we're here to hopefully answer that question for all of you, ladies and gentlemen out there. And of course, the reason why we have Antonio here today is because I consider him the authority on this particular subject between the two of us. If you've watched my videos for any length of time, you're very welcome. If you've watched our videos for any length of time, you're probably very familiar with Antonio's style of art and mine. And we have two very different approaches to producing artwork, both of which are equally valid at their own end of the court, so to speak. I posted a video a couple of weeks ago where I was talking about where I touched on the subject of speed painting and took and approached it in my video from the perspective of somebody who has lots of students who very often get demotivated, discouraged by how fast and how productive other artists are, at least apparently, and how to overcome that and how not to get caught up in that so that you can focus on the quality of your artwork. And Antonio came in with a comment on that I thought, wow, what an amazingly important perspective on this particular facet of the subject. And we had a bit of a conversation about it. And I absolutely loved listening to Antonio talk about the subject. He really is somebody who you need to listen to with regards to how to get the best out of this. And is this intended for you? So in the video, you made a comment. Do you remember what your comment was with regards to the subject?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So what I shared your perspective on speed painting for a long time. Yeah. When I was starting to learn how to draw and when I was in my development, I always thought like speed painting is not my thing. It's very intimidating. But I sort of rolled into it because I saw all of these professional artists do these great lunch sketches and saw these great spit paints, and I just wanted to get into it myself. Yeah. And that's the reason actually I made the comment, is because I had both perspectives now and I have the experience. Yeah. And one of the major things that I love about speed painting is that you need to have a very good sense of communication. Yeah. And as illustrators, as designers, our first priority is to communicate the message clearly. Yeah. Any brief that we get, we want to communicate it as clearly as we can. And because you have this 30-minute window, you don't get to put in all the cool, awesome stuff that you would normally do. No, you just need to get to the core of the message and illustrate that as beautifully as you can. And that's something that I picked up from speed painting that I wouldn't have picked up that fast otherwise, I think. But
what do you mean by the core of the message? I'm sure there's many people curious on what you mean by that. It's very important.
The thing, if you get a brief from a client and let's say one of the topics is an elf fighting an orc, right? Something very rudimentary, simple. Right. What I tended to do is I started with the core of the message, which was the elf fighting the orc. Mm-hmm. But then I would get cluttered in this vision of putting on more awesome sauce, as I would say, like over designing the elf, over designing the orc, too much background, too much shit in the foreground, just that it clutters the entire message of what it actually was meant to be. Yeah. Which is just an elf fighting an orc. And you can make that very beautiful through lighting, proper anatomy, color, and use those skills instead of over detailing your composition.
Why do you think psychologically we have a tendency to prioritize or put too much emphasis on detail and design and adding a lot of fluff to our images? Why do we do that?
I'm not sure what the psychology behind it is, but I do think, speaking from, we've all been beginners, and I think a lot of the times it's due to the lack of fundamental knowledge. Like, you create a certain character and it's not quite there in proportion or in anatomy or, just the core fundamentals that it should have. Yeah. And you just start putting flavor things on top of it to kind of cheat your way into it. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of beginning artists and even professional artists still do. It's there's no limits to learning the fundamentals, and we can learn them every day. So yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons that we do it.
I've heard many masters say that before. I've heard this quote by many different masters out there over the course of the centuries, and that is, the better you get, the more you grow and gain experience as an artist professionally, the more you learn that the fundamentals will carry you through to the end. And you see this very true of so many different artists. And if you look at, if you look at Rembrandt or Sargent or Rockwell.
Yeah. Rockwell is a beautiful example.
In so many ways, yeah. Is that he gets right to the point. Yeah. That way, that thing, that facet of his art that matters most is what resonates most. It's kind of the equivalent of what they say about building a portfolio. Yeah. The art should be what makes your portfolio beautiful, not the website, not the graphic design of the website. You don't want that to take away from it. You want to just present it perfectly and leave it at that. Let the art speak for itself. If there's something about your artwork that you lack confidence in, your anatomy, your values, your forms, your gesture, your perspective, all of these different things. If there's anything missing, it's like a ball and chain that you have to drag with you through your career. And what a lot of people, one of the things that you tackled immediately, I remember when you first started getting into it, you really started pushing yourself, was you tackled all of your insecurities first. That's the first thing you did. And we've spoken about this at length on our channels and stuff like that, but you were not afraid of pain. You had I don't know where it came from, whether it came directly from art or from other practices in your life, but what experiences have you had in your life that contribute to this attitude, to this perspective on growth and learning?
Well, one of the biggest contributing factors, I think, was CrossFit. I've been doing sports my entire life. I did soccer, rugby.
I love soccer.
It's actually called football, Adam, but
it's called soccer. But anyways,
okay, that's a topic for another day.
Okay,
but I did rugby, did a bit of fitness, but then I discovered CrossFit, and I got into competitive CrossFit.
Right.
And the number one thing that I learned there was always work on your weaknesses.
Right.
And it's the most boring thing to do, like sit on an assault bike or sit on a rower for an hour, just to get that conditioning on. Do the basic boring stuff, but it feeds your other stuff, your other abilities so well and so powerful that at a certain level, you start to enjoy working on your weaknesses. Yeah. Like it's the first thing that you want to do. And I think that when I started doing art, and that's what I promote in my channel as well, is that I just applied the exact same structure of CrossFit onto my learning as becoming an artist. Mm-hmm. And it paid off in spades. It's just working on those weaknesses, grinding through it every day with the same mindset, same structure, is something that really helped for me.
It's funny because I use a lot of training analogies in my own artwork when I'm talking on my channel and stuff like that. You said something, we were talking about this, and you said something to me that set off a light bulb in my head. The word that deters or confuses people about speed painting is the word speed.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I hate the word speed in speed painting because it kind of devalues what it is. And I get it, it has to have a name, it's
catchy.
It's catchy. Yeah. It's a better name than slow painting in a short time period.
Yeah.
It's not a good
Sounds
hashtag.
Boring, yeah.
But the thing is that what I learned from speed painting is that you actually have to slow down.
Yeah.
It's a contradiction, but you only have 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So every brushstroke needs to count. One of my favorite artists, Jeffrey Watts, he can do a beautiful gesture portrait in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Something that would take me an entire week. But it's just because every brushstroke that he puts down has been well designed, well thought out.
Yeah.
And just it's an accumulation of his fundamental knowledge.
Yeah.
And the same thing is because speed painting has been around for many, many years. In classical ateliers, what they do is quick sketch, and people probably heard of quick sketch. And it's actually something for advanced draftsmen, which is you do a figure drawing session,
right?
And you get the warm up is usually 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. And that's even faster than 30 minutes, right? So you have to do a beautiful figure or the gesture of a beautiful figure in 2 to 5 minutes. And it's just that I think, in my opinion, it's one of the most valuable things to check your anatomy skills, check your gesture skills, check your perspective skills, check your design skills. It's a really good tester.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the key things that I love about speed painting.
There's a direct connection to dance. When I first started dancing, was it salsa? I think it was salsa, because salsa comes across in that social dance community, it comes across to being one of the faster, more dynamic dances. And I remember a dance instructor, this guy named Byron, who'd been doing it. Oh, it was actually swing. Sorry, it was swing, because Byron was a swing dancer. And he'd said to me, we were sitting down talking about it, and he said, the speed is an illusion when it comes to dancing. It appears that their feet are moving fast. In fact, you want to breathe in, and all of your movements should come from your core out. It's not about moving fast. It's about precision and thoughtfulness and control of your body that makes it look fast and precise. But a lot of beginners will come on stage and they'll frantically try to keep up with the pace while their arms and legs are flailing all over the place and they wear themselves out. It's the same principle. It's about thoughtfulness. Bobby Chiu, he's a strong advocate. He talks about visualizing all the time.
Yeah.
It has to do with exactly the same thought. You look at Bobby Chiu paint, and at the beginning, it almost comes across as being random gibberish. Brushstroke here, brushstroke there. It looks like if he keeps up that pace, it'll take him 6 hours to do it. Yet, if you scroll forward 20 minutes into the painting, you go, wow, that's what he meant to do. And it's all of a sudden this beautiful illustration that almost seemed to come out of nowhere, out of this mess. The structure of that drawing, and made sure that was sound. Step 2, bring in the next thing. And the last thing that mattered was detail. Yeah.
People seem to forget how crucial that is.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Borja Montoro a couple of weeks ago, and he's a guy. He worked on. When I saw his speech, he worked on several things like The Emperor's Groove, Bambi, all these things. He worked with Sergio Pablos, and he was going over my portfolio, and he was like, "Figures good." And I have some horses in my. I don't have them anymore.
Right.
He came over my horses and he was like, "You cannot draw horses." And my anatomy of horses is really good.
You must rid yourself of this. Yes.
Yeah. He was like, "This is not a horse."
Yeah.
And I stood there shocked. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's because I didn't draw the essence of a horse. I didn't draw the gesture that a horse has, the liveliness, the animation, as you call it.
Yeah.
So it's a really, again, you can be a professional, but guys like that will, put both of your feet on the ground until you learn to draw horses properly.
A professional knows how to look through the fluff.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
One of the most studied artists of all time, John Singer Sargent, one of his famous quotes that resonates in my head: if you capture form, you capture likeness. And what he was referring to is exactly that. If you look up close at a Sargent, it's gibberish. But if you zoom back, you look back and you go, that's a beautiful hand with nail gloss and a little embroidered collar. And you look back, you look closely, and it's just like this.
Yep.
This is exactly what he was talking about. And it's funny because you made a quote. I remember we were talking once, and you were talking about something you had heard from Feng Zhu that had to do with form. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. Everything is a shape. Feng Zhu, I'm not sure which video it was, but he when I was just learning, I think 6 months into my art journey,
right.
He made a video and he just said, once you understand that everything is a shape, everything becomes so much easier. No, and at the time when I heard it, I was like, yeah, well, I know everything's a shape. Feng, you don't have to tell me that.
Smart ass.
Yeah. But now that you're a professional and you truly understand what he meant by it liberates you.
Yeah.
Because I think you once asked me that what I believe are if I had to recommend 2 fundamental skills. So once you remember that everything is a shape, it's very, very liberating.
Yeah.
To understand. And I know in a talk you once asked me, to you, in your opinion, what are the 2 most fundamental skills to master? Mm-hmm. And if I have to recommend 2 to beginners, it would be perspective and shapes. Yeah. Just those 2. If you figure out those 2.
One of those scares people. One of those
perspective.
Perspective. That's a scary word for a lot of people. But it's the hard truth, right?
Absolutely.
But we tend to, as artists, not everybody, but a lot of artists tend to, especially the artists that consider themselves, quote, less technical, which is just a label, right?
Yeah.
But we tend to have a bit of a fear associated with perspective. What helped you get over that fear? And what did you use? What resources, artists, who helped you over that hump, and how did it help you?
Yeah. Circling back to getting out of your comfort zone when you want to learn something, tackle those weaknesses. It's equally important to venture into other fields of interests.
Right.
For instance, a lot of professional salsa dancers, but you also know that those guys didn't only practice salsa to get to where they are, right? Yep. And it's the exact same thing with art, even if it's, very specific perspective. If you want to be a fantasy artist, don't just do fantasy things in perspective. Look at the best resources that I found were automotive designers. Those guys like Scott Robertson, their grasp on perspective is so good. Yeah, it can only help your art. It will never hurt your art. Yeah, venturing into things like 3D. Learning about 3D, learning what the Y, Z, and X axis is, how you can manipulate form in 3D. It will absolutely help you on a 2D plane as well. Yeah. So venturing into different fields of interest is a very important thing, in my opinion.
This you mentioned, you kind of tapped on this when you were talking about CrossFit and developing your weaknesses, right? Yeah. I know you don't want to do, infrascapular, work your infrascapular muscles, boring, but what this is going to do to your overall structure is huge, right? How long has it been since you really started to seriously dedicate yourself to producing art?
The beginning of 2015, together with you. That's one of the, I think, ungrateful things about the human mind is that, and you know this as well. As a teacher, it's a bit different, but once you have those eureka moments, right, in art, as soon as you have them, you forget the entire struggle. Yeah, you just forget it. You don't know how you never managed to figure it out, once you have it, it stays put, but you also forget the trouble that it cost. And I think sometimes that's a bad thing. I talk about it in one of my videos that a lot of professional artists, when they teach something to someone, and they're not teachers, they're professional artists. When they want to explain something, they just compound every knowledge that they ever gained into one single piece of information, like it's the most common thing in the world. But they forget the enormous amount of struggle that it required them to get that information. So yeah, that's something that I find very ungrateful about the human mind.
As a teacher, one of the places in my teacher's brain where I love to be is back there at the beginning of the lesson. And and honestly, I'd say that one of the most important qualities for a teacher to have from teachers I love, and from what I've learned to train and value in myself, is the ability to revisit that starting point every day over and over and get that same joy out of revisiting it. Because like you said, it brings you back to the fundamentals. It brings you back to the fundamentals. It gets rid of the fluff.
This is what makes you a great mentor. It's that you can relive the pain that beginners go through. But not many professionals can do that.
No, but I mean, that's the difference between somebody who draws and is teaching a class versus somebody who is a teacher. I want to close on one thing with you. And I think this is probably the most important thing to share with everybody. And that is a bit of a sense of direction. What I always love when I'm listening to an interview is where to go. Where do I take this information? Where should I go next with my own learning, with my own growth? There's two things I would ask you is, where do you go for inspiration when you're looking to generate ideas? And where would you recommend people look next in themselves, in their own growth, to move forward?
Right. Well, the beautiful thing about fundamentals is that you can always take it in the same direction as professionals do, Right. There's no like, oh, I'm a beginner, I need to start here. I'm a professional, I need to start here. No, we can all start at the same point, especially when it comes to fundamentals. So like my core fundamentals, perspective and shapes, what I would definitely recommend people do is that they look at people outside of their field of interest, which is, like I said before, automotive designers, product designers, guys in the industrial design, guys who really, really master fundamentals like perspective and shape design. And then if you're someone that is maybe not that self-disciplined, if you don't want to struggle alone, you need someone to struggle with you, definitely get an online mentor. I mean, I did as well, I've taken your mentorship. I would definitely recommend people trying that. There's plenty of good online mentorships out there. So if you don't want to struggle alone,
I would say, I would add to that and say, like, if somebody was asking them the question, which a lot of people very often approach me and ask me this question, when do you know you need it? I would say anybody can learn anything on their own. To me, it's really a question of time. You have so much time on this planet. Is it worth you taking 5-10 years to figure this out on your own, which I have no problem with whatsoever. I think that some people need to learn through doing. They have to learn, they have to struggle to learn. I totally get that. But if you find that struggle starts to overwhelm you, if you start to feel like it's pulling you away from your productivity and you'd rather just go and play Dark Souls than paint because it's just emotionally too much, that might be a good time to start looking into reaching out to somebody who can give you a little kick in the ass. As long as you're doing something, you're on the right track. It's when you're doing nothing. It's when you go, I just can't, it's not me. It's not my thing. I would say 75 to 80% of people who say art's not my thing are just saying that because they hit one of those brick walls that took too long to get over and it exhausted them. Right?
Yeah. And they're actually saying discipline is not my thing. I think so. Or being honest with yourself. It's not that, because there's a lot of crafts out there that, you can, you can say that's not my thing. But if you're in this mental, like ask any successful CEO, he will never say that's not my thing. If he wants to learn it, he'll probably learn it, and do it very well. And the same, like what you said, to pick up on that, it doesn't only apply to beginners. I think professionals as well, because a lot of beginners seem to think that once you become a professional, you're done learning.
Yeah.
And like even for me, for instance, I like character design. I do a lot of character design, but I really want to get better into environment design.
Same here.
So I took a CGMA class in environment design. I mean,
nice.
Whose
class did you take?
Aaron Liminick.
Aaron Liminick. I'll look into that. Okay.
Yeah. So great teacher. So you don't have to be. You never have to be shy. You have to be honest with yourself when you think like, okay, this is a weak point. I need to work on it. Because the ultimate goal as a professional is that you want to be recruitable. You want people to, and there's only so many people that have that one very, very specific style that everybody wants. And if you aspire to be that, if you force yourself to be that way, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you can make yourself recruitable, much more. I saw an amazing quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't know what it was anymore. But there's a professional artist in one of the Disney companies, and he said, if you want to work in the entertainment industry, you need to be adaptable. Because if you have a style, but you can't do anything except that style, it's not a style, it's a crutch.
Yeah. And I think that very strongly, that's a very important skill you need to learn if you ever want to do studio work.
Yeah.
When you work in a studio, like, Disney, if you're working for Disney Studios or whatever, just because you're working at Disney does not mean everything you do looks like Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Disney are known. I worked on a Disney show. Every time we'd see the artwork that would come in from these different artists, it would be the key word I would use to describe Disney artists is experimentation and diversity. Now, on the other hand, you have illustrators, and in an illustrator's perspective, you are very often paid for your style. So it's kind of two different schools of thought that we take for granted. And very often what we tend to do is just throw everybody into the artist pile, or even today everybody's called a concept artist. No, everybody's not a concept artist. A designer and a concept artist has this type of mentality and these types of strengths. An illustrator is good at that. A fine artist is good at that. And it's very often that balance, that shift of weight from one direction to the other, that very often defines where we go in our careers and what we excel at and what we don't.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's where beginners lose a sense of direction.
Yeah.
Like, we all need to fit the concept art label nowadays. And it's completely untrue.
I see that as a teacher. As I listen to people, like I've had some of my students would say, I want to work at Blizzard. And I look at their artwork and I go, then why are you drawing that? Right? And they go, because I like drawing that. Okay, well, if you want to work at Blizzard, let's do this. I don't want to do that. Well, then why do you want to work at Blizzard? Because I want to work at Blizzard. Well, then do that. But I don't want to. Well, you see where we're going?
Yeah,
it's this
exactly.
Loop. What you're trying to say is you want to work at Blizzard, but you're not a Blizzard artist. You're chasing after a dream rather than listening to yourself. And as soon as you can kind of break that and go, look at who you are, all of a sudden there's a genius just pops out of the woodworks. And that genius can be held back for decades. Age has nothing to do with it. Some people find their voice at 15. Some people find it at 75.
Yeah.
And that's just the way, we're organic. That's how we grow.
I mean, most professional masters that we know, Rockwell, Sargent, Leyendecker, they weren't masters at 20. Well,
nobody
most of them
knew their
weren't.
name
Not that I know.
Much later on in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling, Walt Disney, Leonardo da Vinci. They all kind of hit their stride and became recognized in their 40s.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Steparts, that was absolutely awesome. I love the fact that if we were having a conversation like we were in the same living room when you're at the other end of the world. For all of you watching, you might not realize that Antonio's actually in Belgium, right? Are you in Belgium right now?
Yeah, Belgium right now. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's pretty awesome. So listen, Antonio, thank you from the bottom of my heart. All I want to do now is end this conversation as quickly as possible so I can start painting. That's all I want to do. But
thank you, Adam.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. My thanks to you. I also want for everybody watching, remember that Antonio also has his absolutely killer YouTube channel, Cutting Sketch Designs. Go and check it out and definitely subscribe because he puts out tutorials and talks and all kinds of amazing things you don't want to miss out. So definitely go and subscribe to his channel, as well as my online art mentorship, LucidPixul. All of the information is in the description below. And with that said, Mr. Antonio, I thank you very sincerely. And I definitely have another one of these talks again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to.
All right, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.
Take care.